So I am going to try my best to get through this one. This is Crusade Against Ignorance. As if our young friend here, I will call him Clarence, believes he is smarter than the rest of us. We're the ignorant fools. We're the boobs out here, especially those to the right of Bernie. We're all a bunch of ignorant rube, Neanderthal, knuckle-dragging heathens, and we need you, Mr. Clarence, to help clear up our ignorance.
And people, because again, people tack a lot onto it now because they think that there's this whole new like third wave feminism about like women being better than men, and whether or not that's true is a subject for another time.
No, it's not. That is the goddamn subject, Clarence. We have feminists out today saying women are oppressed and women can't get jobs in STEM and women have all this and men are all privileged. Only the tippity top of men and women in this country are privileged. The vast rest of us average Joes and Janes are not. Feminism looks only at the top. Some people call it the apex fallacy. Okay, Clarence, have you heard of that one? Evidently, it's a fallacy, but we're going to use it here because it's easy to understand, and I think you know what I'm saying. Women have more rights in the United States than men do, under the law. They have more opportunities than men do, legally. And yet we still have feminism out there saying, well, it's just about gender equality. Bullshit, Clarence. Look around your campus, young man. Did you know 60% of the students around you are women? Now, how is that even possible? That would be objectionable to feminism now, wouldn't it, Clarence? Because that's an inequality. What you're going to have to understand, and I hope you don't go down this rabbit hole of feminism because you don't need this bullshit, right? You've got the whole package. You've got the Bernie bro. You've got the socialism. You've got the feminism. You got all the isms, buddy. The bottom line is, if something goes in favor of women over parity with respect to men, that's fine for past oppressions. You'll never hear feminism talking about that. We don't live in the past. We live in 2020. Suffragettes and all that shit was 100 fucking years ago. Clarence, when are we going to start living today? And if you tell me all of these things feminism say, all this inequality and oppression and all this shit is still going on in 2020, 100 years after the vote, I would say feminism has been a massive fucking failure. Wouldn't you agree, Clarence? Please continue.
But the thing is if there was such a movement, or there is such a movement that seeks to establish that women are better than men, that's actually a rather anti-feminist movement, because feminism historically has been about gender equality.
How do these young men get indoctrinated with this bullshit? The indoctrination they get K through 12, and now this guy's in college. How in the can you look around and see reality, Clarence, and say women are somehow oppressed or feminism is about gender equality? It is not. It is about equality with the top apex men, not the rest of us. They see the boardroom, that's what they want. Everything else doesn't exist. Have you heard of the glass floor? Oh, you haven't.
Why is it called feminism if it's just about gender equality? Well,
it's not about gender equality. It's about gender equality of outcome.
That's because it's historically, the movement started and has been a movement of removing stigmas or barriers to women's liberation, women's equality.
For women only. However, men's gender roles have always been the same. Sexual revolution, Clarence, freed women from societal stigmas for having sex and all that other happy shit. Men were still expected to do what men have always done. That doesn't sound like gender equality to me, Clarence. Yet you're going to tell me feminism is all about that. My God, you are a firecracker.
And so it's about gender equality, but the way it's the reason it's phrased for women is because historically women have been the ones that have been subjugated to terrible unequal power structures and patriarchies and all kind of
capitalism, because this guy is a socialist. Patriarchy never means patriarchy, guys. Patriarchy means capitalism. Feminism and this guy and Marxism and all the other isms, they do not like capitalism.
Disparagements. So it's about equality because
no, it's not.
Historically, there's not been equality, and it's almost always been men at the top of these power structures and women at the bottom. So,
and all the rest of the men who are not at the top of the power structures. There can only be one king, Clarence. Do you understand that? If everybody's the king, nobody is the king. Do you understand?
It's about gender equality, but the equality has to be for women. And so now again, I'm not in this video to argue specific things. Like, for example, a lot of people now will say that we've achieved gender equality.
Correcto. Yes. Under the law, we have achieved gender equality in the United States and most of the Western world.
Here in the West or in the United States.
Yep.
And so we don't need feminism anymore.
Imagine, young man, if there were protesters in the street protesting about the Vietnam War, and the Vietnam War has been over for 50 years. What would you say to those people? Why are you protesting something that's been fixed already? Have you thought of it that way?
And whether or not we've achieved equality, again, is a topic that we could make a whole video on.
You know, you should. You should make a whole video on it, because that's why I came here, to hear your thoughts on it. All I'm hearing is babbling bullshit about equality. Oh, Jesus Christ.
Just give you a little sneak peek. That's not really true.
Yes, it is. Sorry, Clarence. You've been brainwashed. Under the law, we have equal opportunity in this country. It's in the Constitution. Been that way for a long time.
But even if it were true for the United States, let's grant that point. Again, I'm not here to argue that. Well,
I know, you're not here to argue anything. You're just spewing bullshit, Clarence. You should think these videos out a little bit better, I think.
Even if that were true for the United States, it's not true for a good portion of the world, especially the Middle East. So feminism's still, of course, extremely relevant.
Except you don't see crowds of feminism going into Riyadh and marching topless in the streets for feminism in Saudi Arabia. Do you, Clarence? It would seem to me that if feminism cared that much about the third world, they might want to do something about it. But you know what that argument is? Clarence, you may not have heard of this one yet, but it might be new for you. It's called a red herring. You might want to look that up.
For the world, because there are still a lot of power structures that women are completely subjugated into, terrible domination.
Tell me how you're going to get a 1,500-year-old religion to change their point of view on the roles of men and women. Go ahead and lay that out for us, and let's get a plan going. Oh, you don't have one, do you? You just want to bitch about it and use it as a red herring. I get it.
And so, again, look up any professional source on it, and you'll see the definition of feminism. It's just
would that be Wikipedia?
just about equality of the sexes and removing barriers to women's equal participation in social and political life. This is, of course, the suffrage movement is where a lot of this came to a head.
Yeah, that was 100 years ago. So why don't we talk about today? Let's not talk about history. Let's talk about now, Clarence.
And there's a lot of interesting stuff there. So there are further questions. There's questions in philosophy of feminist epistemology. There's specific ethical questions.
Oh, by the way, if you're interested in taking down these barriers, why don't you tell us what these barriers are? No? You're not going to explain that except the all-encompassing patriarchy. Is that about right?
And so it's really interesting to dig into. But for the
But we're not going to do that here, because I'm just going to continue babbling bullshit.
bare bones purposes of this video, I'm just saying, I think most people would agree that women and men should be equal.
Yeah, most people do. And most people are not feminists. So, go on.
They're just like, oh, I'm not a feminist, because they attach, all this stuff to feminism. They just think.
Look up the word denotation and look up the word connotation.
If you're a feminist, that means you're some kind of like third wavy soy boy who thinks like women are better than men. Well, soy boy in my case, in the women's case, a soy woman. I don't know. Soy girl. But they tack on all this stuff to the word feminism now about, oh, women are better or men are worse, or we have to restructure society to benefit women. It's like,
you see, actually, Clarence, we don't have to, because the Western society in the United States does already benefit women. You see, you don't believe that, but any objective look around you will show you that that is the case.
Well, we do want to benefit them, but like benefit them more, like give privilege to them. It's like, no, we want them to have equal access to social and political participation and benefits, and that's what it's always been about.
So I'm looking up social equality here, since Clarence didn't define it. Social equality is a state of affairs in which all people within a specific society or isolated group have the same status in certain respects, including civil rights, freedom of speech, property rights, and equal access to certain social goods and services. So Clarence, do tell me, where in that particular list do women not have rights to any of that stuff? I'd like to know.
That's the whole movement feminism's been, and that's still a really relevant movement in most of the world, even if it were true, it's not, that we'd established complete equality here in the United States. So
we're never going to have complete equality, but we have equal opportunity under the law, Clarence. Feminism is about equal outcome, dear. They want 51% of Congress to be women. They want 51% of the CEO board positions to be women and not have to earn it. You see, that would be equal outcome. Do you understand that?
again, I think most people are feminists. So
No, most people in the United States are not feminists.
This is a joyous moment. I welcome you. I welcome the right wing to our side on this. You're feminists, I hope.
No.
I mean, unless you don't believe women should be equal to men, in which case you've got some serious issues that we do need to work through with some philosophy and ethics. But
here's your problem, Clarence. This is a binary choice. If you don't call yourself a feminist, you obviously aren't for equal rights for women, which is absolute fucking bullshit. There's a vast spectrum. Do you understand? There's discussions to be had, but you want to think ones and zeros, don't you? Do you see there's a little bit of a difference between 1 and 0 and a spectrum of discussion? Oh, God, guys. I'll put the link below. I can only get through about 3 minutes of this, and you can go enjoy his discussion on your own if you'd like. James Maxwell, thank you for listening.